Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for coming outside with me today. Today, we are crossing borders for our first international guest here on the Average Jack Archery podcast. We're talking with Lucas Cooney, who is probably most famous for his YouTube presentation on the ArcheryTalk channel. And we're very excited to have him today. But first, before we get to Lucas and all the things we're going to be discussing today with him, if you would like to be on the podcast, part of the Average Jack Archery podcast, please send me an email, averagejackarchery@gmail.com. Find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook. You can always leave a comment on YouTube. But today's episode is not about you. It's about Lucas coming on and joining us from Canada, the wonderful city of Toronto. How are you doing, Lucas?
I'm all good. As we tried to do this outside, but a giant rainstorm has forced me from the outside into my daughter's lovely pink room. So
huge rainstorm. Like it was like, oh yeah, it's good to see you. We're outside, and all of a sudden just started just raining buckets.
It was nasty, but I'm in now, and that's at least I couldn't hear you out there. That's why we had to move in. I wasn't getting wet. I had an umbrella, but I got soft and came inside.
Yeah, well, the pink background's becoming. So
it makes me feel pretty.
Makes you feel pretty. So speaking of feeling pretty, since everybody can't see you on the podcast right now, introduce yourself a little bit in terms of what you're doing here with the ArcheryTalk channel, because it's not like you go out and buy all of these bows to review them. It's actually part of what your actual real life job is.
It is, yeah. If I bought all these bows, my wife would be displeased. No, what happened was a number of years ago, the company I worked for bought ArcheryTalk, and then they had a YouTube channel up already. And because I liked archery so much, I suggested I started helping them put out some videos, and it kind of went on from there. And I reached out to some manufacturers, and they thought it was a good idea to do some kind of bow reviews and comparisons and shootouts and all that. And so I kind of every year I start making phone calls and emails and asking who wants to be taking part and if they can loan me a bow for a bit. And that's basically how it all works.
Yeah, and for those who don't follow Lucas on ArcheryTalk on the YouTube scene, you definitely should start doing that. And if you aren't familiar, it's a lot of bow reviews, and I look forward to them every single year. We get these bows released in January at the ATA show, sometimes a little bit sooner, and Lucas is able to get his hands on them from the manufacturer and put them through a very lengthy testing process. You know, it's not just, oh, I got this bow in the mail, open up the box, and here's the specs. Like, we do that, but then you're going on and shooting them through the chronograph, and you're testing them with scores and different rests and different sights and stabilizer setups. It's a really lengthy process.
Yeah, my goal is to I want to shoot these for months. I don't want to do like a 2-week. Here's a bow for 2 weeks, because my opinions change. Like even when I'm at the ATA show, there's bows that I really like shooting there that I get home and don't love as much, and there's bows that I had no strong opinion about at the show, and I get home and like, oh, this is really nice. So once you get comfortable with it, so I want to shoot them for a long time. I try to get thousands of arrows through each of them. This year was a little complicated with COVID and my club shutting down, so I had to shoot a lot in my garage at the lengthy distance of 5 yards, which was not perfect. And some of them, I think the PSC didn't come till late because they were shut down. They had some, they weren't operating, and I usually get those from those guys a little later because their loan window was a little shorter. But that's basically the whole plan, is to shoot them as much as I can to try to make it feel like I had a season of shooting out of each of these bows.
And I have to bring it up because we talked about it before we went on air here, and it blew my mind. Your presentation, and having met you in person a couple of times, your presentation on YouTube gives the impression you've been doing this for like 30 years with the archery. And
no, I'm new.
Yeah, and it's so unpack that for a minute.
Yeah, I run HEV.com, which is one of the websites I look after for the company I work for. And one day we were at a launch. Kawasaki had a press event. We're riding their Terex side by sides, and they brought Hoyt Archery along, and we were going to shoot bows in the afternoon. I'd never shot a bow in my life, never touched a bow in my life, and as soon as I did, I thought, well, I'm buying a bow. I have to buy a bow. So I bought a target bow right away. And I shot that for a year or so. I shot that for a few months, and then I bought another target bow. I wanted to set up one for 3D and one for skinny arrows, and then I bought a hunting bow, and then on it went. And then the company bought ArcheryTalk, and then I said, oh, maybe I could do some videos. And that probably started, I want to say, 2 years or so into the archery kind of career. I guess career is a very generous term. But the archery lifestyle that I've chosen, just because I like doing it. I'm like, oh, this way I can test new bows out all the time, and it's been awesome. I love doing it. It's overwhelming at times, but it's a great deal of fun.
Right, and we'll definitely get into the testing, because that's really why I'm excited that you're on the podcast today, is talking about, how in such a short amount of time. Now, granted, you're a little spoiled in the sense that you can try all these bows for a lengthy period of time. You don't just go into the shop and shoot half a dozen arrows, but you be able to quickly find really what works for you and what you, as your shooting style, enjoy the best, even in just a few short years. Because as I said off air, it took me a decade to kind of find what I really liked and what I really enjoyed, because I didn't have all that time with many different brands, many different bows. But real quick too, you started with target archery, which for anybody in my neck of the woods here in the Northeast, the United States, that doesn't sound right at all. We're all bow hunting and that sort of stuff, hunting the big woods. But where you're at there in Toronto, is it an Olympic training center?
It's so not exactly. But the Olympic team trains there because we have a 70-meter indoor facility, and that's the Olympic distance. So about 76 and I don't know, half yards or 76 and a quarter yards, something like that. And so they do a lot of training there, especially in the winter months, because you don't want to shoot outside here in January. I would imagine it's somewhat comparable to like northern Pennsylvania, New York, that kind of temperature wise.
It's a little cold in Canada.
A little bit, parts of it. We're to be fair, we're for southern Canada. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Realistically, I've lived in northern Ontario and where we got real scary winters all the time, and snowbanks taller than your head. I don't get that here so much, but still,
you're in the Florida of Canada.
100%. That's yes. We're the city in Canada that nobody else in Canada likes. But yes, and I guess I started with target archery largely not because I had any experience with it, but I just never considered hunting. Well, I didn't grow up in a family that did that. It was a totally new kind of a thing for me. I grew up in a smaller town where lots of people hunted, but I grew up with my mom, and she wasn't involved in that at all. And so I just did like sports and I fished a little bit, but hunting was never on the table. And then I had a chance to try it out, and then I got to do this again too, and that kind of became the secondary little archery passion. Because I'm not as all in on hunting as a lot of folks. I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. I try to get out. I'm fortunate to have a friend of mine who is very into it and likes to go out and scout public locations, and he's been kind enough to let me tag along to some of these spots. Although I'm sure he's regretted that more than once.
Well, you did have success on public last year, right?
I did my first public year. I got into Texas a couple times to hunt with ATV manufacturers for events. This was the first time was able to take a deer on public land. It was the best. We tried a bunch the year before and had saw a deer, didn't have a chance to get what felt like an ethical shot on one. And then this year I spent 5 days, I guess, out in the woods, and we saw one deer the whole time I was out there, and I was able to put an arrow into it. It was nice. I was super stoked to finally get that one scratched off the list, and now I just have to do it again. That's all.
Yeah, that's what I tell myself, because that's all I do here at PA is hunt public. It's like, oh, I did it. All right, well, next year do it again, and then keep going after it. But how far outside of Toronto? Because you're pretty far in the city. We know this if you follow the channel. You have to shoot out of your garage if you can't go to the local club. It's just not. I could shoot in my backyard. Neighbors aren't going to care. But how far out of the city do you have to go in order to find that public land?
If you go a little more than an hour, you're going to start finding public land, and the farther outside you go, the more you're going to find.
Sure.
The good thing about Canada is the Toronto is a big city. The metropolitan area's got 5 million people, but Canada's only got 30 million people, and it's a real big place.
Yeah.
So we have lots of space and not a lot of people in it. And so once you get outside of the cities, there's just it's called crown land up here, land that's owned by the people, the government or the people technically, and so it's almost all huntable. You have to look for specific regulations, but yeah, it's not too hard to find it. Some of it of course, it's busy around here because there's so many people. Where I grew up, I think it was much easier to find less foot traffic on the land you wanted to hunt. But
right.
But yeah, there's spots here, especially if you're following people who know what they're doing, which I'm fortunate to hang out with a guy who does.
Right. That's awesome.
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah. So, folks, let's get to actually why I'm excited to have Lucas on the podcast today, which is talking about, for those of you at home who are new into the sport of archery, or maybe just a few years in, and you are struggling, you're overwhelmed, and you're struggling to pick a bow. Maybe your local shop has a couple of brands. I know my local shop has like 5 or 6 major brands, manufacturers, and you're like, this brand has this technology and this brand has this thing, and what this axle length, this grip, this speed out of this cam, and it can be pretty overwhelming to choose a bow, either for target or for hunting, that fits you and what you actually like and what you actually enjoy. So Lucas is in a rare position where he literally is testing a dozen bows a year almost, for a lengthy period of time, and they're all different in their own and unique ways. And so I kind of wanted him to come on to talk about how he's in just a short amount of time been able to find kind of the bows that shoot best for him and their grip, which is probably the biggest thing he'll talk about. But also axle to axle length as it compares to draw length and draw force curves and cycles and everything. So I'm excited to unpack that a little bit. So let's start with the grip, Lucas, because as you said earlier, that is the only point of contact you have with the bow.
It
And
is. I mean, it's important because that is the only thing you're touching on the bow, so it better be the right kind of feel for you. And again, keep in mind, all of this is subjective, and personal preference is going to change. I think for me, because I started with the target bow, first bow I ever bought, I think was a Hoyt Contender. You're shooting kind of just off the riser, and it was like it's thinner, it's nice and flat, and I just found that very repeatable. I figure target archers, there's nobody more concerned with accuracy and repeatability than people who are trying to hit, that dime at 20 yards 60 times in a row. And so I figure they know what they're doing. I'll just kind of try to do what they do, and then that's the kind of grip I shot, and that's the kind of grip I like. It's still the kind of grip I like. I have expanded the horizons a little bit over the years. There's grips that surprised me that I didn't think I was going to like, that I ended up liking a lot, and there's others I just never enjoyed. But for me, kind of flat on the front, and relatively thin in the hand has been my go-to. The angle has not been super important. I like a little bit of like a low, my wrist to be a little kicked up a little bit if I can. But again, you get comfortable shooting most bows. But there's been a couple grips out there that I just never got along with. I mentioned to you before we hit record that there was like Bowtech had a grip that I just never liked. When I was shooting the Bowtech Rain series and anything before that, it was a very round grip, and I just couldn't get comfortable with it. They've now switched that, and they have an awesome grip. It might be my favorite hunting bow grip out there. Matthews had a grip I didn't like for a completely different reason. It was very flat. This was kind of pre-engaged grips, so like Halon series in around that time, and but it was very thick up near the throat of the grip. I just didn't like how that felt in my hand and never got comfortable shooting it. But they've since replaced that to their engaged grip, which I like a lot better. So I have far less complaints now than I ever had before about these things. But I still think it's an important consideration, because if it doesn't feel right in your hand, then you're just going to notice it all the time.
do you think if you had started with more of a hunting bow type grip where it's a little bit more rounded, not as flat, do you think you would prefer that? Or do you still think that flat target grip is more your thing?
It's hard to say, because one of the hunting bows I had the grip that I thought I was going to hate. It was a Hoyt Carbon Defiant. It had a wooden grip, and it had like a curved out side for your finger to fit in there. I think, oh, this is not going to feel right at all, and it just fit my hand great. Like, oh, that's nice. Now they don't have that grip anymore, I liked it a lot. They switched it to a much more simple grip design, which is probably for the best. But like that grip ultimately fit great. I think whatever feels right in your hand is probably the best one for you. And those ones felt right. The thinner ones are the ones that felt right in the hand to me typically. But that's the beauty of going to a bow shop and trying, especially bows from different brands, is the grips are going to feel different.
Right.
And if you're feeling weird contact, and you're feeling like it might be rolling around in your hand or not settling in, then there's other bows. But that should be a real consideration in how that grip feels to you.
Right. And when it comes to, this is an important thing that I get questions about from people that I always talk about. I like a lot of very low palm pressure, which is not very normal. So, in terms of where that grip can sit on your hand, do you, obviously you're trying many different grips manufacturers, but are you finding that you're putting a lot of heel of the palm, middle of the palm, or up towards the webbing where your thumb and index finger meet? Is that more pressure, or do you change bow to bow?
It's hard to say now without trying them back to back. My gut feeling is that I'm much more up high
Towards the webbing.
Yeah, probably more than I should be. I think it depends. Like I try to come up flat, but I definitely notice there's some bows I creep up a little bit on. I think it does change a little bit from bow to bow, and maybe how the stabilizer weights are set up and stuff like that. But the general, I try to be flat, but I think I probably kick up my wrist a little bit, I think, which is probably kind of why I prefer a bow that angles out just a touch.
Right. And you put on, it's just side plates though on that Matthews TRX 36, right? From UltraView.
Yeah, I had a TRX 36 this year. I took off their Engage grip. I just wanted to try it out. I just wanted to try something new. I knew some of the pro guys were trying the side plates out. And when you take off the grip, you just have a classic target bow grip. It's thin, it's dead flat, it feels great in the hand. And so yeah, just put the side plates on there. It's the only downside for that is the Engage grip that I take off. The grip itself comes with a shelf extender. That's the part that kind of swoops up that your hand would normally tuck into. So when you take that off of there, now you're left with the possibility of your finger kind of creeping up onto the top of the shelf a little bit, which you want to avoid. The more I shoot it, the more comfortable I get with that. But it was a consideration for sure.
That's cool. UltraView and like with Crispy and stuff, they make a lot of grips and different, I think they make different angles, to get,
They do.
10 degree, 15. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something
Sorry, I've not tried those ones myself. I've had 2 grips from those guys. No, 3. Sorry, I had one for a Hoyt, which there's not adjustable angles. I had a Jesse Broadwater series grip they made for the TRX 38, which I love. That thing is awesome. I don't think they make that. It doesn't work on the other TRX bows. Otherwise, I would have bought that one. But I know for the Hoyts for sure they would make the Hoyt target bows. They would make different levels. You can shoot like a 10-degree grip or even a 15-degree grip if you really wanted to go extreme on the angles. I've just never tried those myself.
Yeah. Do you think I know we're splitting hairs here, but do you think for people that want to get the most accuracy out of any type of bow, no matter what they're shooting, do you think they should really play around with the grip as much, or do you think they should just leave in terms of like adding side plates, adding grip tape? I see a lot of people adding grip tape to their grips and that sort of stuff. I never have found that to be comfortable. Have you?
I want to say the Bowtech Fanatic 3.0, the last target bow they had before this one. I put on like tennis overwrap on.
Right.
Fairly thin, just because I found it slippery. The material.
Okay.
That was the main reason I did that. I hesitate to tell people what to do to improve accuracy because I'm not a pro level archer by any stretch of the imagination, and so I don't generally give like tips in that regards because I worry about giving people bad information. Whereas there's people out there that can give much better information on accuracy, but for me I think everything is about experimenting and seeing what works for you. If you're finding your grip is a little bit uncomfortable, you can definitely adjust it. Sugru is a great product. I've used that on grips before. I'm not exactly on a shelf I made on a Martin bow. It's kind of like a Play-Doh material that cures into like hard rubber after about 24 hours, and that's a good thing to do if something just doesn't feel quite right for you. I have a friend who has a recurve bow, and he did all sorts of weird adjustments with Sugru to make sure it fit his hand how he wanted it to. And again, if you don't like it, you can pop it off if you have to. So like, there's things you can definitely experiment, and I think it's probably, especially if you're, most people aren't. I'm in a super blessed position where I get to test a bunch of bows. Most people have to buy a bow, and that's their bow for a good long time. Before I started doing this, I had those same 2 target bows for 3 years before I did my first target bow review, and so you have to get comfortable with what you got because it's expensive. So I'm all for experimenting.
All right, and so real quick here, I'll bring up one more thing that I get really fickle about because I'm a 31-inch draw. I'm a big dude, and I don't like short axle to axle bows. Right, but you're the 29.5, right? Is that right?
I moved to 30 this year mostly because people wanted me to shoot 30 for the speed tests, because they wanted close to IBO settings. So I shoot a 350 grain arrow, 70-pound bow, 30-inch draw length. That's the main reason why I switched up to that. But yeah, I was not a short axle guy either, and I'm still mostly prefer for a hunting bow. I think that 32, 33-inch length is great. I've got that PSE Evo NTN I ordered that from them as a 33 this year, and I really like how that fits. But in the last 2 years, I tried some short bows that I really, really liked. The Matthews Vertex was my favorite hunting bow last year. It was a 30-inch bow. Never thought it would like a 30-inch bow that much. That bow shot amazing. It just felt, again, sometimes it just feels good, but the cams are so giant. The string angle wasn't so aggressive. I was still able to kind of touch my nose to it without leaning in too much to try to I don't try not to break posture when I'm shooting if I can. But if you back down to some of those 28-inch bows, it gets real difficult. But in this year, Matthew sent they sent me the VXRs 31.5 and the 28 to play with. And the 31.5 has the better angle for me, but I'm actually preferring shooting the 28, which doesn't make any sense to anybody. It's just one of those things. I shot it. It's preference. I like how it feels a little bit better. I like how the valley feels a little bit better. And yeah, I kind of opened up my mind to be able to shoot those smaller bows, which I never thought I would like. Because I'm not as big as you. I'm like 6'1", 6'2"-ish.
Well, you're not a small guy.
No, but yeah, you're a bigger dude than I am. And so I don't have to worry about, like, every bow fits. There's no bow that has a draw length that doesn't fit me typically, because that 29.5, 30 inches, that works for everything. Some of those bows don't go that long. Some of them max out at 30 inches, which is, again, another consideration to make if you're looking at buying bows, especially if you're a longer draw length like that. But yeah, the shorter bows for some reason grew on me a little bit. My instinct is still to choose the longer one for the most part, but I'm not willing to write off the short ones anymore.
Right. Do you feel that when you get, because we both like the longer ones, a little bit longer draw length, do you feel though that you are having to work or stretch into those shorter bows, or is it just kind of just a little bit of adjustment, a little bit of a tweak?
The main adjustment is dipping my head a little bit to hit the nose on the string, is because I like that extra point of contact. Just to have just as like I haven't tried that Bowmar nose button yet. I might have to give that a shot, because I do like to have my nose just touching there, and that nose button probably will give you make sure it can touch the exact same spot every time.
I have a couple. I'll have to send you one.
I'll probably buy one of those at some point. I'm sure I can buy one. I'm buying one from Bowmar. But do you like them? Do you like how they work?
Call me a wuss. It hurts my nose.
Okay.
It's when I was doing my testing with it, I'd put it on, tried it. It was a little bit sharp. And so I just took super fine grit sandpaper and just rounded off the points. Still plenty of tactile feel. But I still have kind of this fear that, like, in a hunting situation, I might not notice and I'm pushed into it real hard, and I might just rip the tip of my nose clean off. Like, I have a legitimate concern. So I took it off my hunting bow. That's where I was trying out with it. So, but it definitely was an amazing tactile feel in terms of, I mean, right there, like, you knew if it was on the side, on the tip, underneath, like, it was really well done in that regard.
Yeah, that's what I think, because it helps people get repeatability, especially if you're not like a top level archer. Like, if you're like me, an average kind of skill level shooter, it's nice to have that extra point of contact. So yeah, your grip, your anchor in behind my chin, and then that little nose button, which I just use a string now, which is fine. But I would guess that button with a different spot, maybe I feel like I'm a touch off right now. Maybe that'll help you align up your teeth a little better. I don't know.
I don't know.
I always like trying new things. So
maybe it's the step between turning me into the next Levi Morgan. I have no idea. It could be.
Who knows?
Who knows?
I think it's a much bigger step between me and Levi Morgan than a nose button. It's
for my own sake, I hope that's definitely true. For me,
yes.
It better be true.
I hope it is. I hope it is true for you. But I'm confident it's not it for me.
Because I hope that, like, I put that on. I'm still nowhere near. Because if that's all I needed to be the next Levi Morgan, I would have done it 15 years ago.
That's true. Fair enough.
So let's talk about just one last thing here, because this is something that I really have a proponent for. As someone, I didn't play a whole bunch of contact sports, but still, I always worry about my shoulder health and that sort of stuff. And I've always been on the side of super smooth draw cycle and much slower speed. I've never once chased speed. It's just not my thing. I've never been worried about it. Plus, also, I cheat having a much longer draw length. I can get a little bit more speed out of a slower IBO rated bow. So in terms of the draw cycle, and particularly with the target bow, when you're shooting 60, 90, 120 arrows in a weekend or even more, how important is that draw cycle for you, pulling it back more than just a dozen times?
So as you were mentioning, draw cycle, I think is for me is the most important aspect in choosing a bow. I mean, they're all going to be plenty accurate if you do your job, but the draw cycle is kind of priority number one for me, because if you want a bow that's repeatable and you want to shoot more often, and then beyond just having a bow that's easy to draw, which there are some that feel nice and light, I want a bow that's smooth to draw. so when you're not rolling into a big valley. You're not kind of. I want a bow that kind of just is a nice smooth pull into the wall. I don't love. I think when you're trying to get over that hump, it makes it, even though the bows would weigh the same. A 70-pound bow with a hump is going to feel worse to me than a 70-pound bow that just is a smooth pull into the wall. And that big hump to me usually spells a big valley and a lot of let off. And it's not a preference of mine. I like that 75, 80% let off for a hunting bow and 65 to 70 for a target bow. Just because I want to have that, I want to be able to have a little more resistance against with the bow. If I'm shooting like the PSE, for instance, if you're shooting that bow at 90% let off, which you can, which in a way it feels amazing because it's so light. It feels like you could let the release go and the string's not going to move. It's almost like it makes me too loose. I don't have enough resistance, so you have to concentrate more on pulling hard against the wall, which again I should be doing anyway, and we probably all should. I like to have a little more resistance to keep me maybe a little more active as a shooter.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit and actually transition into the release and into the actual shot process, because it's very important, but it's even more important because all you do is shoot a hinge. That's the only release type.
It's and it's not because I'm cool. It's because I have target panic when I have a trigger. I think it's one of the main reasons I don't shoot a lot of firearms, because it's got a trigger and I jump and I feel panicky even on that, even when it means nothing. There's no competition. If it's just me shooting a target by myself, I'll get real weird if I've got a trigger in front of me. So yeah, I shoot a hinge like this. I hunted with this past year. This is a Stan jet black 3-finger hinge style release. And for those unfamiliar, hinge has no trigger at all. It fires technically by rotation. I'll try to. I don't know if this is going to be all in video or whatever. But if for those that it is, I just kind of made a weird little device out of like a plumber's wrench and some paracord, and the release fires. You can fire a hinge just like you can fire any release just by yanking your ring finger down, and it'll fire away. But then you're just getting in the same trouble you're getting before. Whereas the hinge, as I pull hard with my thumb and my forefinger, and then I just relax and just look at the target, and I don't even think about the release anymore. And that's the only way I can shoot. Because if I'm thinking about the release too much, then I get panicky and I start like hesitating and jerking, and it feels terrible.
So you just relax the thumb and index finger. You don't have.
I don't even. I guess I'm relaxing my hand, I would say, in general. So I'm just trying to take any I'm just trying to take away tension. So I get there and I just look at the target and then pull, and it just goes off. That's my plan.
Okay, I can see that.
I think the best explanation I ever heard on how to use it was from Jesse Broadwater.
I mean, he would know.
He would, yeah. He knows a couple things about archery. If you're slumming it, you could listen to Jesse Broadwater instead of me. Yeah. I don't know why you'd want to. I don't know why you'd want to listen to the guy who's won everything. But I think his explanation, hopefully I'm not wrong in this, is that like he brings his hinge up and then he almost like kind of makes a fist, and then he acts like he's gonna let the release go, like almost feel like the release is gonna fall out of his hand, and that's how. I believe that's how he explained it, and which I think is a good way to kind of teach somebody new to this.
I got to give this a try.
Yeah.
So I got to come to full draw.
Yeah. Come to draw, come to anchor, and kind of like wrap all your fingers around it, and then kind of work almost let it go. But you're not quite letting it go.
Yeah, you don't want to let it go.
No, you won't let it go. You're just kind of like releasing the tension on your fingers, and it'll just kind of. It's almost like you're gonna let the thing go.
Okay, I see that. I really do actually see that. I'm gonna have to try that later when we're done with this. I'm gonna have to go outside and actually try that out, because shooting a hinge, I think, is for people with target panic. If you can do it, if you can own a hinge that has the safety and protect you, so you don't punch yourself in the face. Because have you punched yourself in the face shooting a hinge? Oh, see, I haven't. Knock on wood. I have not punched myself in the face shooting a hinge. So I'm hoping I never do it.
I'll tell you a story on that in a little bit, but you go ahead first.
Well, I was gonna say is like, that shooting a hinge is literally the cleanest. Like they make the tension releases, right, which go off with a certain amount of tension, you pull it through. But shooting a hinge, there has to be some sort of movement with the release. There has to be. You can't just sit there and it just goes off, right? That's not how it works. And having a hinge, either I like that with the broadwater feel of relaxing the hand, or I'm typically a little bit of a rotation person. I do put a little bit of ring pressure, and there's no wrong way to do. I mean, there are wrong ways, but there are definitely a whole bunch of right ways. And so I think that's important. If you can try to, if you really are struggling with target panic and you don't mind trying to shoot a hinge behind a hinge, I strongly recommend it. Could not
Yeah, I think
recommend it more.
it literally saved archery for me 100%. I was about ready to quit, and a guy at my club handed me a True Ball Sweet Spot, which has a safety on
As
it.
a safety, yeah.
And so that was, and I sucked. I sucked for a solid month. It was terrible, but it was better than not shooting, because I got to the point I was doing tournaments, and I was only in archery for maybe a year at this point, and we were doing club tournaments and stuff like that and having fun. And then when I started shooting well, as soon as I had a good round, started hitting a bunch of tens and everything was going well, then I started doing like as soon as I got over the target, and then I started doing drive-bys. So I would like I'd be like I couldn't aim at the target because I was so nervous, so I would drive by, bang, and then go and try to do it like that, which I've got to tell you is not great.
No.
Don't do that. But I did it, and I started like missing the target. I started going from hitting tens to outright missing the paper. I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. This is not for me. And then he handed me the hinge, and it did save archery for me 100%. That was my friend Samar. But I'll tell you my embarrassing hinge story.
Okay.
For some reason, I thought it was a good idea to go shoot Vegas after I'd been in archery for like 18 months, maybe.
In semi-pro?
No. I just shot like flights. I just shot flights there.
Oh, okay, but I guess I misspoke. In open though, you shoot with the long stabilizers and
yeah.
Okay.
Open class. You're shooting full target class. But to be fair, I was actually the best I'd ever shot indoor was heading into that, because I was concentrating on shooting one bow only, which helps instead of changing every day. Shooting all the time, and I was so happy with how I got there. And I don't think I'd ever shot at an actual indoor tournament before that day. So I get to Vegas, and there's 3,000 shooters, and I never sniffed a 290, let alone a 300. I was terrible. And the last day, the good thing about flights is that even if you stink for 2 days, people who had similar scores than you, so you can actually technically even make money on that last day if you shoot well. And so I'm in there for out of 5-6 ends, I'm shooting real well. Like, oh, this is going great. I'm just happy to shoot again. Felt good. And then I was shooting that True Ball Sweet Spot at the time, and it had I like my hinges set really cold, and to set that one really cold, there was a set screw in the back, and you had to unscrew it a fair bit. And I was drawing, and my finger caught that screw, which released the hook, and bashed myself in the face, and my arrow goes limply like 15 feet down the lane. Like, just like,
at least it didn't sail like into the wall of the hotel.
Oh no, I was barely drawing the bow.
Okay.
That was at least there was only 400 people on the line. That was fine. At least only everybody saw it. So
I'm sorry for laughing.
Oh, it was fun. I would have laughed too.
But it's better than dry firing the bow.
It is. I saw someone do that there too. Gladly that wasn't me. This poor lady had a giant welt on her hand. She got a big old string hickey from that thing. Oh, I feel terrible.
Yeah.
But at least she didn't punch herself in the mouth.
Did you have all your teeth? Like no injuries?
I did. Kept all the chiclets. That was good.
That's good.
But no, that was humiliating. That's the last time I've shot Vegas. So I'll let you know. I'm not ready for that again.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to fly out to Vegas from Pennsylvania just to shoot bow hunter class. Like, and I guess also, I want to ask about that real quick too, because I don't have very many open class friends, the people in the industry that shoot open class. Everybody I know shoots bow hunter class. I'm guessing you just did open class because that's just kind of what your club is doing. I imagine you don't have a lot of bow hunter class shooters in your part of the world.
There's a lot of bow hunters at my club, but there's not a lot of bow hunters that shoot tournaments.
Okay.
And so the bow hunters go there and practice, bow hunting, particular specific stuff. They don't shoot tournaments. So the people who are shooting tournaments are primarily shooting open class or pretty close to the open class. And there's tons of recurve shooters where I am, just because we have that 70-meter range. I think that's just where they congregate. And so a lot of the tournaments around here that are target oriented, not 3D, you see a lot of recurvers at. If you go to 3D tournaments, you see a lot more hunting bow setups there, a lot more.
Just mostly for the overall practice thing, because I guess here in the States we have the IBO and the ASA. Are you guys a part of that in Canada, or is it a different feel?
Most of the tournaments here are more ASA style. So they're
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there's a. Actually, no. I'm trying. I should take that back. No, because we don't have the up and down. We just have the middle. So I guess it's IBO style.
That's IBO. Okay.
Yeah, but they're not official IBO tournaments or anything like that. So you can shoot different classes. You can shoot a known class. You can shoot unknown. You can shoot hunter. You can shoot fixed pin. You can shoot like a fixed pin sight on a target. That's a bunch of weird little classes you can shoot. It's all fun. They basically just make it so everyone out there can shoot something that's interesting to them and maybe have a chance to get a podium or something like that. It's fun. There's 3D tournaments are fun.
Do you find yourself? I was gonna say you like field archery more.
I think field archery is the best archery that exists. It's not terribly popular where I am. There's people that do it, and I'm not great at it. I know there's people here that are excellent at it that I shoot with. But it's so challenging because it's like I like 3D archery. There's just not enough shooting for me. You have 40 arrows for a whole day, which is not. I like shooting a lot, and you shoot a field round and you're shooting 4 arrows at each target, and you're shooting. I can't remember how many. It's like 114 arrows for the day or something like that. It's a big long day shooting, and it's just fun. And you get uphill and downhill, and you get different target sizes, different distances from like a few feet to 80 yards. So you really can stretch out and have a little fun. And it's a challenge.
Do they mix in, is it all like 40, 80, 120 centimeter faces? Do they mix in like paper animals as well? I've never shot a field course.
I think if you do the U.S. national fields, there's 3 different days. There's a hunter round. There is an animal round, which is shooting animal paper targets. Okay. I've never shot one of those. They don't really have those up where I am. We mostly do shoot hunter rounds or the regular rounds, or there's even some like world archery rounds too, which are I don't like them as much as less arrows. But anyway, that's all fun. I love going to tournaments because again, I'm not winning a lot of tournaments. I just like going there to have fun. And you're hanging out with everyone I've met in archery is almost to the person is awesome to hang out with. Archery people are great. They're helpful. If you ever when I was new to my club, a million people were there to show me how to work the bow press. How to adjust a sight when I didn't know how to adjust a sight. But it did all these things. There's people there that showed you how to do that. And so you try to pass that on and keep that kind of going. And that's why I find archery people are awesome. That's why I like going around to tournaments to hang out with archery people.
And that's not just specific to Canada, folks. Just because Canadians are very nice people, it doesn't mean that here in the States they aren't very useful as well. Because at our local club and stuff, the exact same thing. We have the bow press there and the arrow saw there. And if you don't know how to use it, someone will show you. And they're always willing to help out. And it's just, I like 3D archery is our big thing around here. Although I prefer the indoor myself. I don't know why, but I love indoor. But the 3D archery here is like golf to us, right? It's just no one's good at it, but everybody's here to do it and have fun. And that's kind of why we enjoy the camaraderie and all that sort of stuff. And I'm glad to hear that is not just specific to my area. And of course I knew that, but it's awesome to hear that you could go to your local club pretty much anywhere in the country, anywhere in the North American continent in particular, and find some really positive people.
That's great. It's a great community of archers. I'm so happy and lucky that I kind of stumbled into it.
So as a kind of a final takeaway then here, Lucas, going back to testing out bows and trying out bows, lots of good review videos on the ArcheryTalk YouTube channel about that. And there's even a budget bow setup video. Now, there's some much lower price bows in there, but there's some really good ones in like that $400 to $500 range. And so I kind of want to talk about that a little bit because I always get asked when I'm working at the shop, what bow would you shoot? Brand this, brand that, how much money would you spend? I can't tell you that, right? I don't think you could tell anybody that either.
No, again, the worry I get sometimes, because I'm testing like the flagship level bows, because that's the ones the manufacturers are changing every year. Because they're the ones that bring in the dollars, and so we change. And I love shooting them, and the fit and finish is next level and all of that. But there are good bows for way less money. Like that, you know, you're going to give up maybe some fit and finish. You're going to give up maybe a little speed, and maybe the draw cycle won't be as great or something. But God, they're plenty accurate. Last year I shot the Mission MXR, which was I think is a $500 bow, and they said they sell it as a package for, you know, another $100 or so. And then there was a PSE Ferocity, which is sadly is not being made anymore, but PSE has a bunch of bows in that same $400 range, $500 range. And God, I love shooting those things. They shot. I felt accuracy wise, I was every bit as good with those as I was with the $1,000 bows. And so I worry that people have this need, like, oh, I don't want people seeing me shooting this less expensive bow. Well, no, man, shoot the bow you can afford. And I promise you that if you put a $300 cheapest bow out there that whoever makes, a Mission makes or PSE makes, stick that in Jesse Broadwater's hands, he will work me over like I was a kid fighting his dad if I was shooting a flagship $1,000 bow, because they can shoot. They you know, some of them are they, you know, they'll have different feels and they're different levels of fit and finish, and maybe they won't look as nice or whatever. But yeah, they're you can get great shooting bows that don't cost $1,000. There are plenty out there, and especially if you want to buy used bows, God, there's all sorts of great deals, because everyone's chasing the bow that makes them perfect, and that doesn't exist. And so they buy these bows, and 3 months later they're being sold for 2/3 of what they cost brand new. Like, oh, and that's a great bow to buy. I bought plenty of used bows off the classifieds, and it's you can get some great deals that way. But you know, if you're buying your first bow, I probably wouldn't recommend used, because you want to rely on a bow shop, and the bow shop's not going to go want to set up and help you with a bow that you didn't buy there.
No, and that's another good point to bring up too. Like, we have a lot of these people that bring in these super, you know, it's great to, you know, if it's what fits your budget, it is what it is. But if you bring me at the shop, or even here at my house, in my local shop, if you will, if you bring me some $250 thing you bought off of Amazon with fiberglass arrows, and you're going to expect flagship, first of all, it's not really all that safe, in my opinion. And secondly, you're just not, you're wasting a lot of people's time. Buy the $400-$500 package there at your local shop, and they will take the time to set that thing up and get it perfect for you, so you can go home and have a very positive experience and good scores shooting that more budget-minded setup.
For sure, I think new archers would be very smart to have a relationship with their shop. I think it helps a ton. The first shop I walked into, I was actually in South Carolina. My dad was living down there, and it was a guy named Bud. He was at Bud's archery shop, and he was so nice. I was a stranger. I had never been in an archery shop. I was kind of scared, to be frank, because I don't know anything. I don't want to feel like an idiot, and I'm walking in there, and then they helped me set up the bow. They helped set up the peep. They helped make sure the cams were timed properly and all that stuff, and they did everything. And it cost you a couple of bucks, but those are the people that know what they're doing, and you want to be supporting them, and kind of, you know, especially with bows and stuff like that. You're new. You need someone that knows what they're doing to help you get started. So yeah, I would definitely not advise buying one of those super cheap kind of bow packages you see on Amazon. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about budget friendly bows. You get them from a reputable manufacturer, and that they'll sell them at your archery shop. You know, again, and I don't have anything against like a big box store. I shop at Bass Pro and Cabela's as much as anybody else. But if I'm a new archer, I probably don't want to get my bow there, because they're not going to have the archery know-how to help you out with it. That's where you want your local shop to build that relationship. And then I think the archery community really does need that.
I think it needs it more than we care to admit, which is a shame. But I think it really is that we, you know, and a lot of shops get a lot of bad rap and so on and so forth. But it's tough to pay the bills if you don't have customers, and it's
100%.
tough to have support if you don't have a bow shop in your area. So support your local shop if at all possible. Whether you're buying the budget, whether you're buying the flagship, I think it's really important.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
Well, Lucas, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast today, bud. Where can people find the Archery Talk general social media stuff?
Yeah, on YouTube, Archery Talk Video is the main channel where you can look up the Archery Talk on Facebook as well. We've got all the videos get posted up natively to YouTube or Facebook, so whatever works for you. The exact same videos are showing up at the exact same times. That's the plan. And that's it. If you know, I'm always happy to. I try to read all the comments, even the ones that are mean as all get out, but that's
Yeah.
okay. I still read them, and I usually clap back a little bit if I need to.
I haven't made any mean comments, so I'm just gonna
I
maybe
trust you.
I'll have to start doing it though.
That's fair. My feelings get hurt easily.
I'm sorry. Well,
I'm
maybe I won't
delicate.
then. I'll say some very nice positive things.
There you go.
Well, bud, I appreciate it. Thanks once again, folks. If you want to be on the podcast just like Lucas, please averagecheckarchery@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, leave a comment on YouTube. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time.